The Athene Real Talk podcast explores controversial ideas to stimulate debate and active thinking. These ideas do not always reflect Athene's personal views. Welcome to the Athene Real Talk.
He has been called the best gamer in the world, hands down.
World famous gamer and philanthropist Athene.
Gaming for Good, it's called, has raised more than $20 million.
Using his notoriety to raise money for charity.
On activism, science, culture, and self-development.
Proud to have him in the studio today. I would not want to take you on in a video game.
I realized that on an essential level, everyone is the same. I already knew that before, but that on an essential level, people are not evil. And people just want to do good. And it's rather a lack of awareness that makes them do bad things. And the best way of achieving that is not through labeling and through understanding and acceptance. And when I say understanding and acceptance, I don't mean that you're just fine with what people do, the damage they cause to others, but just accepting the person for his mistakes on an emotional level. Because we have this tendency, mainly male have it. I would say masculinity translates into conceptualization, while femininity translates into more emotional. And as a result, when you listen to what I say, and you're a guy that thinks really much in concepts, and I talk about emotional nourishment and such, it's actually very hard to relate to it because you're thinking in concepts and you're not really imagining as much the emotional foundation that brings about these conceptualizations. And that's why even in communication, sometimes the best way to communicate and help someone and make someone feel truly emotionally relating to them and have an emotional connection. Mainly guys, what you can do is look at it from an emotional understanding point of view, but rather from a conceptual understanding point of view. And that's why there is so much miscommunication between genders, and why women feel they're not being understood by men, and why men feel like women cannot understand them. And the reason why that is because you have this masculinity which brings about conceptualization, analyze, hunter-gatherer kind of mindset where you really structure and analyze everything, while on the other hand you have this emotional, more feminine way of nourishing the family and nourishing, social bonds and understanding the feelings that bring about this other side of the coin. And both are required for a society to function properly. And what I did was, what I said was really all very correct. Like I even talked about self-love, I talked about self-confidence and all these things. At the same time, the how, which is the emotional way of coming across, was really way too judgmental and basically went against what I was saying. So the how and the what have to go hand in hand, and the way of being able to even create that synergy is by understanding the emotions and also appreciating them and allowing them to grow as much as the practical side of things, the conceptual side of things, the more analytical side of things. It's actually quite fascinating because I've been thinking about it, whether you're more masculine or more feminine. It's defined by hormones. It's defined by testosterone or estrogen. So you have hormones that define also quite some behavioral patterns, but what's really fascinating about that is that there is this, and the way you just nourish, and either way you have the biological thing and you have the environment. And basically, if you grow up with a strong masculine father and a very feminine mother, you learn how to have both sides, and your hormone levels have this synergy with your environment and such. And it's all things that, it's quite a lot of research about it, but it's a very different thing to really understand this and be aware that and realize that if you don't take all these things into account when you deal with trying to help people to help themselves, you really get yourself in a position where you do more harm than good. And that's what I realized. What I realized is that with the Real Talk, even though I did help some people that could resonate and had a stronger emotional nourishment and went already through the emotional phases because of enough self-love and such, the people that were lacking behind, and that is basically the majority of the world, the majority of this planet, definitely in the more technological advanced part of the world, really lack this emotional nourishment because we are quite clueless when it comes to that. But here comes a problem when you grow to a conceptual level, right? When you grow enough emotionally and you nourish your emotional need of self-love, self-confidence, self-trust, what happens is when your more primitive needs are satisfied, you go to the next layer of development. And you have Maslow's pyramid of needs, although it's not fully accurate, but hey, you got several needs you have to satisfy. But once you're emotionally satisfied, you can go to more to the mind, be clear-headed and use your conceptual thinking and cognitive empathy and such to understand the world. But the problem is if you're emotionally concepts, or with their more doesn't understand, or she doesn't understand the need for love that you need, you can really create traumatized people where you really come into this cycle where you constantly judge yourself because you think you're not good enough. That's why I had constantly this ping pong duality throughout my live stream, because I knew for certain people what I was saying was actually working miracles, where people really understood what I was saying and such. And then you had other people that were just constantly trapped inside this loop where I see like, where is all this negativity coming from? Why are they hating? Why is this? Why that? And that's why I realized like emotional fulfillment and being able to emotionally feel fully calibrated is essential before you can even actualize yourself on a more rational level. So the question now is, of course, like, yeah, okay, that's really nice, like, but it's important for both, because I know there's certain people who haven't enough self-love and don't even understand how that's a big deal. And the best way of me being able to explain it is like, really imagine if you would go to life where you would really have been bullied, or where you really have been pushed down by your parents all the time, and you wouldn't be able to do what you wanted to do, and you were always punished. Like, imagine what kind of awareness you would have, how it would affect your emotional stability and stuff, because that's really the problem with our reptilian brain, or the problem with our really gut intuition, is that we just take for granted what we have. Like, it almost doesn't exist, even though it's crucial, and that's how we manage to evolve. There's, of course, many reasons why that is, but when it comes down to understanding, we don't get to assume these things are there when they're actually components. So because all our computers have a CPU, that we can just take the CPU for granted, and then when the computer doesn't work, we don't need CPU. Like, if you want to help others, it's important to understand all components that makes a fulfilled person, a fulfilled being, and you cannot use your awareness to impose your way of looking at people with a different awareness, because that is you being inside your head. It's not looking at reality for what it is. You got to go about things always based on each person's awareness separately, and see how you can nurture them to the extent where they can start nurturing themselves, because that is the key. The key is to find a way to get to people to a point where they can help themselves. So help people to help themselves, because then with the right resources and stuff and the right knowledge, they will find their way. That's why this information is very important, even for people that are more emotionally actualized, as much as for people that aren't as much emotionally actualized, to understand how it works, because it makes us understand each other. It makes us understand better parents, makes us understand better genders, different genders. Our ability to understand how we work, our ability to emotionally also understand how we work is crucial. And that's the problem that I had before. When I was always talking about understanding, I was always coming from this more clear-headed perspective where I'm really reasonable and where I use all these concepts and I can really explain my emotions very well. But what I was taking out of the equation was that for being understood, you also need to feel understood. And feeling understood is an emotional process more than a conceptual one. So me saying these things in a certain context won't help as much as, for example, me actually being there for you and truly listening to you and really understanding you and really like making you understand that there is nothing wrong with you, and really fine to be where you are. It's fine to make mistakes, because that's also something that I realized quite a bit. My mother always gave me the room to fuck up. In retrospect, it's a gift. It's a gift to be able to have your own experience and look at someone and allow them to make a mistake. Because what I would do is like, yeah, but why would I want that person to make a mistake? If I can avoid that person to make a mistake, I want him to avoid it. But the thing is, if you're still in the experience phase of your life where you're emotionally being nourished and you don't understand so much conceptualizations and stuff when you're still a child, to put it that way, then making mistakes can help you grow. Of course, you can still wonder, like, what if the mistakes go at the cost of other people? That's when you need to find certain ways to overcome the damage and to avoid that from happening. But when it just comes to living your life and allowing people to make mistakes, or children to make mistakes more so, gives them so much room to grow. Because that's really like, when I went through life and when I look back, I always had this freedom to express myself, to try out stuff. And I would understand and realize if my mother would be much more protective and control freak, basically, then every single mistake that I would make, she would really blame me, make me judge myself, and literally cut away all my inner confidence, all this inner passion of understanding the world. She would cut it away and make me literally complete slave for her, or for her acknowledgement, which really blocks away completely my creativity and my ability to act actualize myself. So the ability to just understand that really allows you to be a better parent, to be a better mother. This from both sides, where when you come about things more really understand why people have to go through mistakes, why they have to experience it. I never really understood that. I look at history repeating itself and I say, why do we have to repeat the same mistakes as in the past? It makes no sense. But it's because I'm emotionally nourished. If you're emotionally not nourished, you have to go through the experience. And then the best way of going about it is in a way where you're not a kid that grows up with guns. You go through that emotional nourished process when you're younger, and if you're older, you get in an environment or you get people around you that can nourish you properly, that can understand you properly in a way that you're fine with making mistakes. And don't judge yourself or don't beat yourself up over it, because it only does more harm than good. And I know that if I would have this conversation with myself, because that's really what I like to do, if I would have this conversation with myself, I would say like, because if people do more damage with their behavior, you need some structure, you need conceptualized framework, reason, rationality to avoid more damage from happening. But the thing is though, if I didn't talk to my own previous self, I would say like, yeah, but that's how you do overcome more damage. Because if you try to control and really manipulate people or push them in a certain direction, you're not solving the cause, you're only treating the symptoms in a way that is not long-term scalable. And that's the problem. And then I would say like my older self, I would say like, yeah, but that's easy to say. I have saved all these lives and stuff. And if I wouldn't have had this approach, then I wouldn't have had the impact that I had. And then if I would talk, I would say like, yeah, that's not fully accurate, because if you would be able to people into these nourished people that can grow and actualize themselves, then rather than just you having to look at your achievements, you would actually make a ripple effect where other people are creators and have an achievement themselves. But then what I would say is like, yeah, but if that is the case, you're giving people too much credit. You're assuming that when you give people the ability to make mistakes and to actually just be who they are, that they won't take advantage. I mean, we live in a time where freedom and the ability to be who you are is more praised than anything, and yet still we live in a shithole. But then what I would say is like, yeah, but that's because you're looking at it from a conceptual perspective and you miss out the fundamental foundation of what brings about a stable person, which is the emotional framework. If a person is emotionally not nourished, then obviously he won't be able to grow and have this clear-headed and focused that for granted. Like when you grew up and when you had all this love from your parents, you assume that this is a prerequisite for everyone and everybody has it, but that's not true. So being able to give that to people is essential. Then what I would say to myself is like, yeah, but that doesn't stop the damage that these people are causing, and you have to do something about that. The reality setting shows that you have to make sure that you stop the damage, and at the end of the day, reality overrides emotions anyway. People are not truly building on their own self-love and their trust when they have this gloomy expectation layer on top of that forces them to be productive. And then they will never really truly allow themselves to give themselves, to actualize, to be creative, because they constantly have this checkup of like, oh, Daddy Athene might kick me out or whatever. And that's the thing, like the problem is when it all arises, all the issues and all the doubt that I had when it comes down to reality was mainly a failure myself, was my own failure. It was not a failure of the way they are. It was a failure on my part because I had a lack of understanding, and it made me doubt in people's essence of being good. And as a result, what I did was I even warped it to the extent where I thought it was a choice. I thought it was a choice because I can choose, but that is just a result of me being inside my head. When people have a low awareness, does a child choose to be evil? I would say, of course not. Well, imagine these staying children as they grow up, but I say like, but they develop an enhanced, more rational part of the brain. That doesn't add up, right? But then I would say like, but their emotional part is behind. So of course they will just use their reason to find what they lack emotionally. They will never get fully, truly developed. And that's the thing, like being able to emotionally nourish people allows them to grow from within, to get to a point where they become more clear-headed and clear-minded, and then change and doing good. Really something that I didn't realize because I didn't know how to do it. And this is fascinating part. If you grow in awareness and you grow into understanding things, and emotionally you're more and more fulfilled, and you start more using cognitive empathy and really understand things more from conceptualizing things, you assume that you can just explain to people what the problem is, just as much as I'm doing right now. I used to assume that I could just explain you guys the problem and it's fixed, but that's bullshit. A lot of the people that are watching right now this stream, the only way that I can truly help you is by emotionally relating to you guys and by guiding you guys to your own emotional blockades. And it's only then that you can actualize yourself. Of course, I can give some tips where you can really follow the emotion and try to understand experiencing it more and more, and really not judge yourself and don't have expectations, and accept yourself for who you are, love yourself, accept you for even the mistakes. But that requires you to really follow the emotions, and in order to even do so, it requires to be understood, to be accepted. Of course, I'm trying to do the best thing right now to explain these things and to help you guys in order to really trust in yourself and really believe, because even people that don't want to help themselves, it's a symptom. It's because on a fundamental level, you feel like, why help yourself? You're not worth it. So getting love and getting this understanding and getting someone that truly listens to you on an emotional level can really help you open up. That's why I also said that I would love to be there for you guys, because now I understand how I can help in that regards, although it might be helpful, because if you guys really look up to me, or some people look up to me, I'm just telling you guys, it's important to understand that there ain't nothing wrong with you. You don't have to judge yourself. Allow yourself to be and allow yourself to make some mistakes, and just don't run away from your fears. Try to experience them, go at them, and don't label yourself, don't judge yourself. Because even in my language, when I say don't run away, maybe when you then play games, you go like, oh, I'm running away, I'm bad. No, just experience the emotion, go try to find it out where it comes from, and by experiencing them, you can overcome so much. That's what I realized, and once that is done, and when you become more conceptually oriented and focused, not only will action come automatically, but also a lot of the insights that I talk about, you will just come up with it themselves. And then even if you feel like having a big impact or working with like-minded people, you just come over and apply and have an impact here. It's come naturally. It's not like I have to apply, I have to go there, or I'm not responsible or whatever. The sense of responsibility is something that grows from within.
Subscribe to youtube.com/AtheneWins. Watch the live stream at twitch.tv/AtheneLive and follow The Real Athene on Snapchat. The Athene Real Talk podcast explores controversial ideas to stimulate debate and active thinking. These ideas do not always reflect Athene's personal views. Welcome to the Athene Real Talk podcast.
He has been called the best gamer in the world, hands down.
World famous gamer and philanthropist Athene.
Gaming for Good, it's called, has raised more than $20 million.
Using his notoriety to raise money for charity.
On activism, science, culture, and self-development.
Proud to have him in the studio today. Would not want to take you on in a video game.
Bronzoli says, Athene, going with understanding and accepting helped me a lot. A great insight. But I have a question. If you interact with a close person like a friend, and that person acts in a way which is likely causing harm to me, and maybe him, but he won't see it because of his reference frame, can you still just go with understanding and hope for him to find the way himself? Or is there a situation to be confrontational and direct assume never become visible in his reality? Well, Bronzolis, that's a really good question. And it's a very hard one to answer. Because, of course, it depends from situation to situation. And the extent to which I can give you an answer to this question is the extent to which you understand your own emotions. Because if you go about life and you start understanding yourself and you give it a try, by making it come true to your actions and your behavior, people will even wonder how come you went through this change. And then you are in a better position to explain to your friend how he can also try and go about it the same way. But the problem is that you're looking at the stream, you trust me, you take the time and initiative to really lay down in your bed and really try and figure out what your emotions are trying to tell you, and by understanding them you can relate harder. My advice would be to use cognitive. And what is cognitive empathy? It's basically putting yourself in his shoes, trying to understand why he does what he does. The problem though is that cognitive empathy gets broken when the person is a threat to you. Because when he's a threat to you, you have to protect yourself, and cognitive empathy requires you to lower your defenses and be truly in his world. So I understand that if the situation is one where he really harms you, the best way you can go about it is like you would tell a child in a respectful manner that you really care for him and you really want the best for him, but that certain of his behavior is not okay and that it harms you. You can really say that in a very respectful manner. If he doesn't listen or if he gets angry or whatever, you can just with really kindness and authority and integrity explain it again. And if he actually has power over you, then it becomes a bit more complicated, because then you have to start thinking more pragmatically, because you can't just give your opinion. You can't just say what you want to say. You got to start thinking more emotionally, intelligently. It's like a slave owner back in the days, right? A slave, if he would go to his slave owner and talk about integrity and say these things are not fine, he would just get killed, you know? So obviously a slave could not talk back to his slave owners. But today, nowadays, we live in a world where we're more free. So if he has control over you, then you can first wonder, how can you become independent? And becoming financially independent really allows you to be more free. That's why it's such an important thing in our development to be able to live by our own self on our own feet, because else our parents have quite a lot of control over your own life. Is very crucial. So maybe that's the reason that he even can harm you, because you're in a position where he has control. So how do you gain control? Always try to find how you can change the equation to a position where you have control and act upon that, because when it's not in your control, you can feel desperate, you can feel anxiety, you can feel fear. But when you find the control in yourself, like for example, like I'm gonna become financially independent, find a job or whatever, then you can resolve it even without having to confront your friend. I know I'm going quite deep into this, but I know this is a situation a lot of people can resonate with, and that's why I thought this explanation might help. Always try to see how you become the solution, and really if there's obstacles or if there's things that allow you to not believe you can do it, follow the emotion, listen to the emotion, try to understand it, and maybe undo it. Because a lot of people might think, but I can't take care of myself, or I feel worthless. Go deeper, figure it out, because you can. You can do stuff, you can have an impact, you can take care of yourself. You guys have great potential. So just Nico says, Athena, I get what you say about understanding where people come from and the sense of peace you feel where you understand that people aren't bad based on the stuff they say or do, but scared hurting. But I find it takes a lot of focus from me to maintain that perspective. It is not like this for you. Did you just make that realization one day and then you stayed within that frame of mind effortlessly since? It comes with time, man. Like, you just start realizing that really blaming people just doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help the person. Like, understanding gets you so much further. And of course, sometimes you have to, protect yourself people's really negative influence. But at the same time, you don't have bad blood. You don't take it within you and go like, oh, this guy or this. You don't process it with hate. You just understand it and you see it for what it is. That's what I try to do all the time. And it really gives me this mindset where no matter what someone did to me, even in the past, some people have backstabbed me like crazy. I don't look back with hate or anger or whatever. I just think, what can I do to help, And this just works way better. Whenever I say it's important to understand why you do what you do, a better explanation is whenever you take an action, to understand that it's emotionally driven. And by understanding the emotion, you can learn more about what drives you. And then you can say, yeah, but you say what drives you is understanding or logic. But the thing is, though, the reason why on a fundamental level, I completely trust it. So emotionally, I basically completely have given myself to understanding, to put it that way. And also something that I've been saying a lot on the stream, so many times, and even in here, I say so many times, I don't care about my feelings. And the problem with that sentence is that it's not fully accurate. The truly accurate sentence is, I don't care about my feelings because I understand why I have them, and therefore they are not part of the equation. But if I don't understand my feelings, then I do care about figuring out why I feel a certain way. Example, if I have stomach pain and I know it's because I didn't eat, or I skipped a meal, or I ate while I was laying down, I care about that feeling, that pain. But on the other hand, if I have stomach pain and I don't know what it is, might be cancer or whatever, then I do care. So the moment I understand the emotion, I can either act upon it or accept it. And the reason why I say I don't care about my feelings is because I understand them. Because the moment you understand them, you can either act or you can accept. And when you accept, it means you let them be for what they are. It's these kind of things that I find fascinating, that I talk about so many times, and it's this little nuances that make all the difference. But when I grow up and I always am used to understand my emotions, of course I just say I don't care about my emotions, because I understand why they're there, and I either act or I accept, and it gives this balance in my world and the way I live. Emotions are merely, and when they bring value to the table, I follow up with them, and if they don't bring value to the table, then I don't follow up with them. But it's my understanding of my emotions that brings about my course of action, because just acting emotionally without knowing what my emotions are, without understanding them, is very unreliable. It's something I really experience, like it's inconsistent, and it's something that I try to avoid. Trip Triggers says your channel views per month will be the lowest of all time this month. Any thoughts on that? I don't care about the amount of views, because to me it's always about what is substantial, and what is substantial is not a view count, it's the actual concrete impact in the world. And I can tell you, our next project, when it is live, it might top streamers on Twitch. Might, not saying it will. And then everybody's coming in the chat going like, whoa, Athene, man, that game is so amazing. You're the best, Athene, man. Oh shit, I knew you were the best paladin. Oh my god, Athene is back. Athene is back, man. You showed him, man. You're the best dev, man, best game dev I've ever seen, man. You're so good. Oh my god, I want to be a friend now. And then after a year or two, if I don't come with anything new, then it's like, come on, Athene, man. Where's the old Athene, man? The guy that made these sick games, man. Where's Athene? Athene, come on, where you at? Athene, where are you? Where you lost your mojo, Athene? Where you at? So yeah, I'm just expressing the emotional fluctuations of people, because that's how it goes. When people come to me and say something, there's a lot of consistency. It's because you just express what you feel. The facts don't matter in the equation. It doesn't matter that I'm in a building that can have 100 people. It doesn't matter that before I was just working with Reese, now we're with 30 people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that we're working on projects that can have a huge impact. It doesn't matter at all. All these things are completely irrelevant to what you feel right now. Because what you feel is just you see me streaming. You don't see anything concrete. So you just go from wave to wave, from one hype to the other. It's like the fidget spinners. You can't wait to have a fidget spinner. And then when the hype is over, you can't wait to go to the next thing. And without knowing, you're basically just being pushed around by your emotional needs controlling you, by me, politicians. It's really so when people have an opinion about me, I can tell you opinion, when it is emotionally driven, it is very biased. It's a very important insight. It can help you a lot if you truly understand that you cannot have a real opinion when your emotions are influencing your opinion, because if you feel one way you say one thing, and if you feel another way you say another thing, you're not really being actually reliable for yourself. Your emotions are literally dictating the way you see the world. Then you start questioning whether these beliefs you're attached to, that you literally lose yourself to and really make very important decisions in your life with them, you start wondering whether you can truly trust them. Because they're not defined by your understanding of reality. They're defined by how you feel. And the problem with that is that it just brings about a life that is a lot and can really make you make very big mistakes. You can start a credit to buy a car or a house. Yeah, you can just make decisions that can truly affect the rest of your life in a moment. And that is why it is so important to understand your emotions, because when you experience your emotions, you follow them and you understand them, and your inner child, your emotional inner child, can trust this understanding instead. It basically gives the keys to the car, to your understanding, and then you can be more mindful, you can be more focused and aware about how to go about life, and it will increase the quality of your life immensely and the quality of other people. Damal says, but your Save Children project is pointless, it doesn't grapple the problem at all, don't you get it? The thing is, Damal, I've never done the Save Children project. I did the Save Children project because it helped me inspire people. To me, it's always about working on the mindset, on the awareness of people, which includes you. And I'll be really honest, I know that you're saying that it doesn't grapple the problem, but neither is what you're doing right now, which is talking in the chat. Like, if you want to be part of the solution, then you try to see what you can do and you take action. You don't just stay on the sideline criticizing it. And when I work on Save the Children, the reason why I do so, even though I know it's merely a symptom and not a root of the problem, is because it inspires other people, and it's a way to emotionally relate the good cause I'm working on. If I start talking about awareness growing projects and stuff, people are a lot less inclined to be invested in that, because emotionally it's not about children, and you have to speak the emotional language. It's a pragmatic choice that I make because of trying to have an impact, and came over here because of the Save the Children projects, which allowed us to even start even bigger projects. So I'm just saying, like, the reason why you have this negative attitude, right, not only towards the world but also towards the projects that is obviously doing good, is not because you have these strong rationalizations that you've thought about and that's your conclusion, but it's because there's an underlying reason where you really feel very, very dark within you, and that expresses itself in these opinions. And that's why I say feeling your emotion, feeling this dark place and following it and really trying to understand it can come with answers that will greatly benefit you, more so than the rhetorical answers I can give you based on the arguments you're making. Because even this conversation is not the problem. It is what is underlying it. And for you, it is your emotional state. And thinking about it can greatly help you. Chris Bendix says, the inner noise is so loud for me that I'm deaf by now. Chris Bendix, let me tell you something. I'm going to give you something really nice. All this noise, right? And all these emotions, right? That is not even you. You're the one that is observing them. It's something that really allows you to be in the present. When you understand that you are not your thoughts and you're not your mind, you're just merely the stream of consciousness. And these thoughts and these emotions are merely there to help you survive, to help you understand. It allows you to take some distance. And understanding these thoughts and understanding these emotions and understanding that they have a reason. They try to help you. Even the craziest noises that you hear, it's trying to help you. But you need to understand it. If you can take the energy to try and understand it and really look at it from a distance, I'm telling you, step by step, you can turn down the noise, because the noise is a cacophony of many different things. And people that are in very complicated situations and stuff can experience this constant cacophony from all these different directions. But I'm telling you, if you focus on one specific thing and you understand it, you feel it, you can resolve it. And then another one, and then another one. And by doing so, you can really lower the noise and become more at peace. But of course, knowing that you are not these thoughts and that you're not these emotions and that these thoughts and emotions are not the bad guys. They're just merely there trying to tell you something. And by understanding it, you can resolve your emotions. I'm telling you, you won't have to live in this life of noise, as you can make one after another more and more quiet. I'm going to talk about a very big problem. It's really a big problem in society. Basically, the problem of wanting to be right. And what it basically is like when you have a certain opinion or idea or whatever, you say it and someone disagrees or whatever, you want to be right. You have this gut feeling to want to be right because your brain works like either bad or good, very binary. And even though your opinions might change and you might really fluctuate from day to day, you have this investment in what you think because you want to be right. And the reason why you want to be right is because it gives you a sense of safety. It gives you a sense of control because you know what it is, you can trust it, and done. But what is really fascinating is that wanting to be right, or this needs to be safe and to have certainty, is actually giving you less control than the one where you just see reality for what it is and you accept that you might be wrong. Accepting the answer conviction will give you more control and more safety than one where you actually believe you're always right. In my situation, I don't want to be right. It's also something sometimes I talk to people come down and tell me like, man, you always want to be right. And I'm like, I don't always want to be right because I know I'm not always right. It makes no sense to be always right. I know that there's a part of me that might want to be always right, but I'm always skeptical. The thing is with me is I don't want to always be right. What I want to is I want to be honest. I just want to be honest more so than I want to be right. And the thing is that the difference between honesty, wanting to be honest, and wanting to be right is that when you want to be honest, you can admit sometimes that you're wrong. And actually admitting that you're wrong and owning up responsibility is actually most of the time being right in the first place. And what I mean with that is like, if you do something right, something I also read yesterday on Reddit, but it's very interesting because it's true. If you can admit that you made a mistake and you can own up the responsibility of that mistake, then it shows integrity, it shows reliability, it shows the ability you can fall back on this person, you can trust this person. On the other hand, if you just hold on to the idea that you're always right and you don't want to admit or accept that you might be wrong and you don't take your responsibility, that shows very little trust and reliability. And as a result, that actually brings about a worse situation in situation where you interact with other people than one where you can just gladly admit you're wrong and just own up responsibility, take action, and wrong with that. And that is something that I always knew, but I never really put into words so concretely. The way it works is wanting to be right is very much tied into your ego. Because if you're wrong, you gotta be a little bit vulnerable. You gotta admit that you don't know it all. You gotta embrace uncertainty, but that is fine. If you on a fundamental level, on a pure level, you can fall back on your essence. And you know that understanding, in my situation, understanding and honesty brings about a stronger framework than one where you're always right, one that is more emotionally binary. Then even when you admit you're wrong, you don't really see it as a defeat. You don't really experience it as a defeat. You more experience it as a strength. And that is something that I think a lot of people can benefit a lot from. Because if you see being wrong as actually winning, because it means it means that you can take up ownership of your responsibility and act more aligned with reality and gain more control, then rather than seeing it as something negative, you see it as positive. Same with negative emotions or emotions you experience that are negative. People see it as a bad thing. No, it's your emotions trying to tell you something. It's a good thing. And same with uncertainty. It's a good thing to embrace uncertainty. It gives you more control. It gives you more ability to be aligned with reality. And as a result, you can find peace in it. You can find safety in uncertainty. You can find safety in not always being right. You can find safety in honesty. You can find safety in admitting you're wrong. You can find safety in responsibility. All these concepts that we, on a fundamental level, have connected something negative emotion because of society or conditioning or whatever, we can actually reframe these things by thinking about it and rebalancing these things, and it can benefit you. And the idea of being right is really something that is extremely toxic in the sense that, it's all over the internet, it's all over people, and the thing is also, when you have it, you see it in others. You really see it truly in others all the time. You think everybody wants to be right, and even if people don't always want to be right and just want to be honest, you just cannot see it because the way you see it is, I want to be right. He also wants to be right. And therefore, you constantly very much easily fall into this fight or flight mechanic and are much more defensive than you should be. Of course, we live in a society where most people want to be right, but there is actually people that are quite open-minded and want to be honest instead. So it's not about being right, it's about being honest. Something that I understand on the chat now much better. How often people actually think because I come across very confident or I say things in a certain way, and then it really rubs off like, man, this guy is such a cocky asshole. He always wants to be right. He thinks he's always right. But the thing is though, like, I just want to be honest. I don't want to be right. I want to be honest. And being honest and letting that decide what is right from wrong. It's not me that decides what's right or wrong. It's not my opinions that decide what's right or wrong. It's not my emotions that decides what's right or wrong. It's reality. And if you have this honest relationship and because reality is external, right? That's the thing. Like being right is internal. It gives you control. If reality what's right or wrong, it gives you because reality is not in your control, right? It just happens. But that's not true because you can understand reality. And that gives you the ability. So using reality as the one that defines what's right and wrong and all that stuff, there's a gateway to it, which is understanding. And that is so fascinating to be aware of it. I mean, what I'm saying is quite spot on, although I know that a lot of people might not truly understand what I'm saying because it requires you to really think about what I'm saying and process it. But this honest relationship with reality requires you to embrace uncertainty, requires you to embrace the ability that you might be wrong, requires you to question yourself. And that is something that very little people can do. And it's something that I've embraced since I was very young and has made me the person I am today. I can gladly admit that I'm wrong. I've done so several times in my life. Even though it doesn't very analytical and very rational, I always use reality as a feedback loop, but sometimes I can make wrong calculations. At the same time, this mindset of just looking at the world from an honest perspective can so much greatly benefit people. It's insane. But yeah, I understand people want to be right because it gives them safety. It brings about delusion because you just think you're right even though reality shows you otherwise. It doesn't matter. You just filter it all the time. But yeah, if you embrace that being right all the time is not what is most safe, then maybe you can more easily reevaluate your opinions and your beliefs.
Subscribe to youtube.com/AtheenWins. Watch the live stream at twitch.tv/AtheenLive and follow The Real Athene on Snapchat. The Athene Real Talk podcast explores controversial ideas to stimulate debate and active thinking. These ideas do not always reflect Athene's personal views. Welcome to the Athene Real Talk podcast.
He has been called the best gamer in the world, hands down.
World famous gamer and philanthropist Athene.
Gaming for Good, it's called, has raised more than $20 million.
Using his notoriety to raise money for charity.
On activism, science, culture, and self-development.
Proud to have him in the studio today. Would not want to take you on in a video game.
What is very important when I say to be truly yourself, that's also very important to understand. Being truly yourself does not mean feeling fine when you're around other people. Being truly yourself is a relationship with yourself where you feel full confidence, enough love, and you don't mind being yourself around other people. You just constantly just yourself. There is nothing that can be hurt because you trust yourself. And even when someone comes at you and talks smack or whatever and says something that really could potentially hurt you, you just filter it through understanding. You see, that person just didn't know any better. When someone comes to me and start going on a rampage, I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry because these people don't know any fucking better. And that is the thing, when you go through full understanding rather than just blaming yourself or blaming others, you just forgive people. You go through pure acceptance to see things for what they are, and you try finding ways to see how you can help people to get them more love, more understanding. Because love and understanding, it's the same thing. Like, love is understanding, you know? Of course, understanding embodies more than just love, but you guys get what I mean. So yeah, that's really important. More comfortable around other people is because these other people, they don't feel like they're being judged by them, either because they share the same identity and the same flaws, so they can very easily cross-connect them, or because this people is more understanding or whatever. But if you have this pure relationship with yourself and you understand why you experience this anger or blaming yourself, whatever, if you have this understanding gives you more and more confidence to be just truly yourself at any given time. I will repeat all the time the same thing from now on because it's just the core, it's the essence. You guys blame yourself. A lot of people, even, why are you watching the stream? Why do you have the need to go to the stream and watch live streams or whatever? Why do you have that? Because you feel empty inside. You feel worthless. It's the only social contact for many that you can get, that you feel like you can just look without feeling judged. And stream, because I can sometimes really talk smack, but right now I'm showing love, man. I truly care. I don't want to give up on you. And you shouldn't either. You should never give up on yourself. And I bet there's a lot of people watching the stream right now that give up on themselves. Man, if I would have given up every time when someone talks smack to me, I'd be a fucking scrub in the sewers. But no, you use that, you understand it. Understanding allows you to fuel all the hate around you into inspiration. You can change it. You can transfer that negative energy in motivation, in inspiration to keep going, to try and help. And have an impact, rather than just going into a negative spiral like, I suck, I suck. Come on, man. You don't suck. Your essence is pure. You don't label yourself. You don't judge yourself. You believe by trusting in your intuition, knowing that understanding, reason, is the best thing you can trust. Reason. Let me tell you who you can't fucking trust. You can't trust your identity. You can't trust your fucking ego. You can't trust your self-pity. These things just screw you over. You can trust reason. And you know, when people were clicking, right, it was working. People were actually valuing logic and trusting it. Do you know why they felt back? Do you know why you guys, when you clicked, felt back? It's because you didn't know how to cope with self-doubt and how to cope with fear. And then you were then subconsciously back reaching out to identity or to ego or to self-pity in order to cope
with your situation because you didn't know any better. But I'm telling you, trust your reason. It has answers to everything. And if you experience fear, rather than channeling it immediately through ego and being in denial, no. You try to understand. You have to isolate yourself. Even if you're vulnerable, it's fine to cry. Just cry, whatever. It's fine. It's fine to just be yourself. And if people just push you around and all that shit, I'm telling you, you're going to be on the winning end at the end of the day. Just go to your room, cry a little bit, forgive them, understand them. And honestly, from the bottom up, you will get stronger and stronger and stronger. When people were talking smack and shit to me, I saw through it. I understood it. Understanding, man, that's what you guys need. Love is understanding. Feeling accepted is understanding. Feel understood is understanding. Reason, man. All praise reason. And that is basically logic. Logic, reason is quite interconnected, intertwined. And you can fully trust your intuition. And it's not the duality. It's not like, oh, I gotta be logical or I gotta be... No, just follow your intuition. And when you have inner conflict, how can I understand it? Because understanding solves it. Understanding solves your shit. Because once you see reality for what it is, your emotions don't even punch you anymore. You don't even beat yourself up. You either accept something or you try to do something about it. That's how simple it becomes. And I'll explain you guys something else. The reason why you guys feel like eating or playing games or whatever the fuck, it's not because you guys want it. It's because you guys feel distracted, and it's a way to go from this inner voice and either chatter and either noise to a point where you're just in a flow. Watching or playing games or whatever, watching this stream puts you in a flow. It sets you at ease. And the moment I stop streaming, the voices start coming back. But these voices are a symptom. They are you pinging to others because you don't trust your fucking self. Good to listen to me because I give you a little bit more trust in yourself. I'm telling you, you can give it to yourself. You can do it yourself. And the moment you do that, you are free forever. But I'm not saying like you're going to go blindly and go like, oh, YOLO. No. Reason. Whenever you don't understand something, don't use all these previous baked in mechanics like, now I'm going to use my ego, or now I'm going to pity myself, oh, I'm so shit. No. When you are in a situation where you experience doubt or you experience fear, it's only because you don't understand it. And there is an answer to everything. You just got to think about it and figure it out. And even if you're in this weak state, even though it is hard, I understand that your identity might be skyscraper high. It is a lie. And if you don't tackle this shit, you're going to have to carry it around for your rest. And the bigger the skyscraper, the bigger the weight on your shoulders because you're carrying it around. This skyscraper that you feel a little bit confident, you're carrying it around. You don't need it. Let it go. Follow your reason. And I'm telling you, if you do that, you won't even need to watch the stream anymore. Maybe you need some little help, a little push or whatever. Apply, come over. I'm even giving people that go like, okay man, my environment is toxic. Come over. Don't fucking make excuses, man. Be fucking responsible. Believe in your fucking self. Don't give up on your fucking self. And if you learn how to do it yourself and be able to understand that your intuition is always fucking right if it comes from the pure state of what you are, you can never look back and regret what you did because you knew you did the right thing with your understanding. You're always clear. The past you don't give a shit, the future you don't give a shit, but you know you can count on yourself. But you gotta be able to love. You gotta be able to care on a fundamental level about what you are, man. That essence, that inner child that was crawling away, allow it to be, man. Allow it to be curious. Allow it to start growing back up, man. Time says, Athene, please explain me how these people living in your place for free. What's the catch? Do they work for you? Please explain. No, they don't work for me. Let me tell you something. I live my life pure based on my intuition. And my intuition is very rational, obviously, because I've always tried to understand everything. Whenever there is something that my gut feeling says, this doesn't make any sense, I try to figure it out using reason and grow. Like I understand that on a fucking essential level, there is no difference between me and you and anyone else. I feel connected with everybody around me. I understand that the body, I understand my cell in a bigger organism, that's it. So my ability to have the biggest impact, to contribute the most, to have the biggest ripple effect, is by enabling other people to do so. And that's why I started this place. And then you can say, but what about you? The reason why you think selfishly, the reason why you think, oh, me, is because on a fundamental level, you think physically you are at risk. You are not safe. But that's not the case. I'm not at risk. Everything is fine. I'm not starving. I have a roof above my head. So these fears do not control me. I understand my fears and I overcome them. And that is why enabling people to come over here and allow them to actually get and grow to become truly self-independent and trust themselves is the biggest impact I can have in the world. So to me, I'm not even giving. To me, I'm just being. And if it wasn't for my parents in the spot where I am now, the reason why you distrust, because you project yourself. I trust myself and I trust the world. I care about you and I don't give up about you because I don't give up about myself and because I care about myself. You see in others what you see through your own eyes. And that is why I care. That's why my intentions are pure. That's why I keep putting effort. And I know it's really hard for people to wrap their head around. Definitely when you come from a place where all of this sounds too good to be true. But the reason why it sounds too good to be true is because when you grew up as a child and you wanted to do good or whatever, you got punished. But I'm just telling you, with reason on your side, you can overcome all the unfairness and all the shit in the world. You can combat it. And that's what I do. I think a lot of people, what they have to understand is comfort is not a cause, it's a symptom. It's a symptom of you on a fundamental level having this need to constantly follow your intuitive. Then you don't even need comfort. And even if you end up resting or whatever, it's not even framed like that because it's more about escapism than it is about comfort. Like I feel comfortable all the time just being who I am, following my intuition, but that doesn't mean I'm not productive or I'm sitting on my ass or whatever the fuck. So it's not one or the other. You can feel comfortable just being who you are. And the reason why you are craving for comfort is because you aren't. It's like basically the ultimate state where you don't even have this need to go and, crave for distraction or whatever. And it really has to do with task positive network and default mode network. I will quickly explain. Default mode network is the network where you constantly have this inner chatter and inner voice, and task positive network is the network where you're doing something like playing games or whatever. And the problem is that they're mutually exclusive, so you can't have both active at the same time. So that's why when confusion and duality, you automatically crave to activate the task positive network by eating or by watching movies or by whatever, distracting, because you don't want to live in your own head of noise and conflict. But if you, instead of looking at this noise of conflict, start understanding where it comes from and just accepting who you are, then your default state becomes this essence where you're constantly present and in a more task active network, because even when you think, it becomes more directed, more clear, more focused. And it's really like explained basically how the brain works and how you can really overcome quite a bit of your limitations by just meditation and breathing and stuff can shift it away from being trapped inside this cacophony of noise